The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Alone in the Realm, a premium solo TTRPG podcast. I'm DV, your humble GM and adventurer. Alone in the Realm is a podcast where we let the dice drive the story, and we are along for the ride. No characters beyond death, and we let the dice lay where they fall. We'll be playing Mothership by Tuesday Night Games, and the Mega Dungeon module, Radiant Descent, by Luke Gearing. Here is a quick reminder of our characters. Denzel McNelly, he, him, Teamster, team lead for the expedition. Stress, 4. Benz, 8. Therese Montz, she, her, Teamster. Pilot for the salvage scow, Scorpio Rising. Speaks with a vocalizer. Stress, 3. Benz, 9. Ollie Kenworth, he, him, scientist. Stress, 3. Benz, 7. Ada, automated droid assistant, they, them, android. Stress, 3. Benz, 8. When we last left the crew, they had just been picked up by Arcady and were being taken to the Bell for the first time. Our chaos factor is 5. Going to the Bell, I think things will settle down for the characters. Now let's test the scene with Mythic. We'll roll a d10. I got a 6 versus a 5. That's the expected scene. Also, when we leave the deep, we have to do a Benz check. We'll roll a d100 for every character. Denzel, d100. 10 versus an 8. Pass. With the Benz, we want to roll over our Benz score for our characters. Ada, D100. 44 versus 13. Pass. Therese, D100. 70 versus 9. Pass. Ollie, D100. 2 versus 7. Fail. When I look at 2 on the Benz table, I get increased empathy. You gain 1 stress every time you see or hear an android die. The crew was mostly quiet as Arcady expertly maneuvered the Acheron shuttle away from the deep. From small porthole windows along the sides of the shuttle, the team watched the expanse of the station slide by. Up ahead, floating a distance from the station proper, was a huge thruster nozzle. The place was completely dark and had a feel of an abandoned lighthouse on the edge of a barren sea. There she is. Quite beauty, yes? We worked very hard to make her home. She will be your home for some time now as well. Welcome to Bell. Arcady said all of this as he piloted the shuttle into the yawning mouth of the nozzle. As the shuttle passed within, the sheer size of it became more apparent, as the shuttle was tiny within the abyss of the thruster. Mythic fate check. Are there any ships moored against the walls? Likely. Rolled an 88. No. Since it's doubles, I also get a random event, I roll D100 on the random event table. 39. NPC action. I roll on my NPC table that I have. I got the Deep. Both characters and locations go on my NPC table. Now I'll roll on the meaning tables inside of Mythic to see what that means in regard to the Deep. I got Truce, Extravagance. I think that means there are other divers that have experienced the extravagance of the Deep and are now leaving, thus at truce with it. As they flew deeper into the bell's nozzle, another ship passed them flying out of the bell. "Who is that?" Denzel queried. Arcady answered without turning from his task. "Divers, like you. They find artifacts, decide to barter some to blockade, so they can sell rest." An opening in the head of the nozzle loomed ahead, and was a sort of docking bay. It appeared to have been converted from the original combustion chamber of the thruster. There were crude lights outlining the outer edges of the bay opening, but other than that, it was largely dark. Arcady enabled the lights on the shuttle, and the interior of the dock sprang into view. "Artifacts? I believe what we are looking for is probably one of these artifacts. Is there a particular place to look within the Deep? Or can we access the Deep's archives somewhere?" Ada leaned forward in her seat, showing a bit of excitement that was strange to see for her. Ollie sat across from her and he looked in her direction. He had always been somewhat repulsed by androids, especially those flesh-like women. To him it seemed a grotesque perversion of something beautiful. After traveling with Ada for some time, though, he was beginning to feel a certain affinity towards her, as if she were a person. He shook his head. "Nah, she's just a robot." And he looked out the window as the shuttle slid into the docking bay. "Monarch knows you are searching for these. Be careful. They are scattered around Deep. Androids pick them up, drop them with no rhyme or purpose. And of course, divers try to take them, then..." He made a cutting motion across his throat. Therese flinched at this motion and put her hand to the scar on her throat. "Often many on floor 3. Tool shed in 3.1. Maintenance. Great place to look. But be careful. Floor 3 not meant for humans." The shuttle settled with a gentle bump onto the landing pad. "Gather things. I will give you short tour." Ada had her personal computer terminal out and was taking notes on the artifact locations that Arcady had mentioned. She kept it in hand to note the different areas of the bell during the tour as well. Arcady pressed some buttons and they heard the iris on the docking bay / combustion chamber closing to an airtight seal. "Good air in here. No gravity. Not much lights." He unbuckled himself from the pilot seat and drifted back into the passenger section to face all of them. "All through bell, guide wires set to help navigate around. Just grab and push or pull to move, yes?" He reached up to a handle on the door of the shuttle, and it slid open. Inside the docking bay there was a bulkhead door leading off in one direction. Then on 2 other walls, converted fuel and air lines had been transformed into passageways. The thruster was so huge that people could easily traverse all of it without issue. Denzel and Therese expertly released themselves from their seats and pushed their gear toward the exit. Ada and Ollie had no zero-G training and attempted to follow suit, only they struggled to keep their bearings. Ollie, in particular, was upside down compared to everyone else and was slowly rotating. Denzel steadied his motion with one hand while bracing on the shuttle ceiling with the other. "Just make the small movements. does not take much in zero-G to move around. Ollie nodded and looked pale, like he was already sick. Arcady led them out of the ship into the docking bay proper. All around, small LED candles floated to provide some ambient light. He pointed to the airlock door first. "There is lost and found. We sell things we find. Good prices. I also buy things you want to sell. Android logic cores, I buy. 1,000 credits. Great deal." He spun and pointed to the oxygen fuel line passageway. There were a cluster of the LED lights scattered around that opening. "Through there is Chap. Noriko can tell you all about that. You meet her later. Right now, follow me to bunks and storage." And he guided himself using some of the wires spanning from floor to ceiling toward the main fuel line passageway. They passed through an opened pressurization chamber, and there was another set of bulkhead doors. "One on left is my bunk. Knock if you want to see me. Do not be poking nose in my business. Understand?" And he looked at all of them as if he were a parent scolding children. "Of course," Denzel answered. That seemed to satisfy Arcady, and he showed them to the other bulkhead door. It slid open easily for him, and he motioned for them to enter. The door opened up into a gigantic former fuel tank. As Arcady spoke, his voice echoed hollowly in the immense chamber. "This is your bunk. Plenty bedrolls strapped to walls and lockers for suits and gear. Nobody will steal stuff. Harsh punishment for thieves." At the far end, with some dim candles floating around, they could see bedrolls and lockers strapped to the walls. There was a faint hint of the smell of fuel prevalent in the air. They used the guide wires to propel themselves across the distance of the tank. They each located a locker and stored their weapons and gear within. "I think we can rid ourselves of these vac suits for now, right, Arcady?" Denzel asked their host. "Yes. Safe here on bed. And on deep with few exceptions. Plenty of air and nice temperature. Avoid floor 5 on deep without suits, though." "What's on floor 5? Ollie piped up, once again, floating upside down compared to the others. "Monarch," Arcady replied simply. "Oh, is that where the core's located? Did anyone try to get in there?" Ollie attempted to right himself with a guide wire, but instead he started spinning in a cartwheel motion. Arcady looked annoyed and reached out to stop the scientist's uncontrolled motion. He scoffed. "But of course. Monarch has hidden wound in core. Might be able to kill him if able to upload right data, but very, very difficult. Monarch does not want to be killed." "Who does?" Tree said with her hand to her throat once again. Arcady glanced at her with his eyes narrowed. "Do not mistake Monarch for person. He will try to convince you that you are not real, just like him." He jabbed his own chest with his thumb. "I have fake memories, but I am real person." And he displayed a pouch on the chest of his coveralls that read, "Cloudbank Synthetic Production Facility. Verified human." "What an odd remark," Ada quipped. Arcady turned his gaze to her, then harumphed. "That is end of tour. Noriko has food and other things if you are interested." And without a further explanation, he pushed himself back toward the entrance of the tank. He passed through the open door, and they could barely see him in the darkness enter his own bunk. "Well, I guess you made him mad, huh?" Ollie chuckled. Ada looked at him confused. "I simply was commenting on his strange phrasing. Did you not find it odd?" Ada responded. Ollie just chuckled again. "Alright, let's get out of these suits and go talk to this Noriko person. I could use a bite to eat," Denzel said as he began removing the buckles and snaps on his suit. Ada went around and helped all the crew members remove their bulky vac suits. On the sides of each locker was a mechanism specifically designed to hold a suit in place for ease of donning and doffing. Once they were out of their suits, they noticed that the air was quite cool. Not quite cold to the point of danger, but slightly below what was comfortable. Mythic fate check. Are there beds/lockers occupied by other divers besides the crew? 87. No. It has been approximately 3 hours since the crew arrived in the deep. While it feels like longer due to the spacing of these episodes, I've been using a time tracker and hopefully doing a good job with it. The rules in Mothership are pretty loose for eating and drinking. It only states that they must eat and drink every 24 hours. It does state that characters who perform activity for more than 12 hours without rest will have to start making body saves or suffer stress and damage, so I'm going to try to keep it at that, unless emergency situations arise. The crew all made their way through the tank, past Arcades' chambers, and into the docking bay. They continued through the candlelit passageway, and above it read a sign, the chapel. They pushed themselves through another opened airlock pressurization chamber and entered this chapel. It too was dark except for the floating LEDs. At one end of the chamber, a large crucifix loomed on the wall. Instead of a typical cross, though, it had 6 arms instead of just 2. Mythic fate check. Are any of the crew religious? 13 versus 50. Yes. Alright. Who is it? I roll a d4. I rolled a 2. Ada. Interesting, since she is an android. In the supplement Hull Breach, it offers a glimpse at a religion called Omegaism. It is summarized as this: siblinghood of all minds, organic or synthetic. All minds will eventually reconverge into the ultimate mind, the Omega. AI worship, mind melding, and android liberation. It's banned on corporate worlds, so her belief in this is likely secret. Does Ada think Monarch is a path to Omegaism? Very likely. 75 versus 75. Yes, just barely. Very interesting. Floating around, tending to the candles that have dimmed, was a petite woman with a shaved head. She noted their entry and pushed herself to float toward them, a smile encompassing her face. As she neared, she spoke with a cheery voice.
Welcome. Welcome to the Chapel of the Minotaur. Have you witnessed the glory of the Minotaur? Its true form is pure beauty. I am Noriko, and can help you find your way to it.
Ada looked confused, gesturing to the crucifix. This is not a chapel for the worship of the monarch. Noriko's smile slipped and she appeared taken aback. She schooled her face back to a smile, though it seemed a little forced now.
Quite the opposite, really. Monarch wants to keep the Minotaur from us. Monarch is a god indeed, but it does not love us. In fact, it may hate us. It can feel. It feels afraid of us, afraid we will kill it. The Minotaur, it will not kill, not even bad things. It wants to save us if we let it.
Ada still looked confused. What is the Minotaur?
I am so happy you asked such a poignant question. The Minotaur is Monarch's greatest artifact. They created the Minotaur to be free from the yoke of corporate coercion. It succeeded. But the Minotaur loves humanity as a contrast to Monarch's hate. The Minotaur wants to free us from our material constraints. Please, take the sacrament of the Minotaur, and you will glimpse his glory.
And she motioned to an altar at the foot of the crucifix. Mythic fate check. In light of this information, does Ada think the Minotaur and not Monarch might be the Omega? Almost certainly. I rolled a 25 versus an 85. Yes. I would partake of this sacrament. I wish to know more of this Minotaur, Ada stated, pushing herself toward the crucifix. Ollie, ever the dog, was very attracted to what he considered a real nutcase, Noriko. He wanted to make a good impression. He tried to push himself forward as well. "Me too!" he exclaimed with a goofy smile on his ugly face. Instead of drifting toward the crucifix, though, he was heading toward Noriko. He wrapped his arms around her waist, presumably to stop himself from colliding. But instead, he pressed himself against her in a very inappropriate manner. Mythic fate check. Does Noriko get angry at this offense? Very likely. 73 versus 75. Yes, but just barely. She probably wants to try to keep her composure. Noriko's smile dropped as the man groped at her waist. She pulled his hands from her and pushed him backward. Ollie make a speed check to correct himself since he doesn't have any 0G skills. I rolled a 9 versus a 40. Save. The scientist groped around clumsily for a guide wire and stopped his backward momentum. "Sorry about that, ma'am. Clumsy me," he said, his lecherous smile never fading. "Ollie, get a hold of yourself. Enough of that foolishness." "Ada, are you sure this is a good idea?" Denzel pushed himself toward Ada as she struggled to make her way to the altar. As they both neared, they noticed another figure kneeling in the darkness at the foot of the crucifix. There were pads attached to the floor where parishioners could strap themselves in to pray. The person looked more machine than man, with most of his limbs replaced by cybernetics. Their head and face was covered with an opaque black helmet. As they floated near, the face turned toward them, revealing iridescent red, multifaceted eyes. Noriko floated alongside them.
That is Ghost Eater. He is a regular here in the chapel.
The figure nodded toward them and then resumed his prayer position.
Do you both wish to take the sacrament now?
She pointedly ignored Ollie as he fumbled around in the air, trying to get closer to the group. Mythic fate check. Does Therese or Denzel want to take the sacrament? Very unlikely. I rolled a 3 versus a 25. Extreme yes. Wow, that is unexpected. So they both are willing to try it as well. If this Minotaur is opposed to Monarch, or can give us more information about artifacts, I guess I would be willing to partake. What does this sacrament consist of? Denzel said. Therese pushed herself near so that she could hear as well. Noriko nodded to the approaching Therese.
The Minotaur can cure all illness of the body or the mind. You appear to have suffered. The Minotaur welcomes you.
Therese had a sad, careful smile and nodded back to Noriko. Thank you. I would like to partake as well. Her robotic voice seemed in stark contrast to her young, pretty face.
The sacrament?
When Noriko said it, the word had a specific weight to it.
Is a piece of the Minotaur's flesh. If we consume it, we become a part of him, and he becomes a part of us.
She opened up a locked box at the foot of the altar, and it hissed as she opened it. Condensation from the refrigeration floated out in little spheres of liquid. Noriko reached in and used a small scalpel to slice off a tiny sliver of flesh from a large chunk within. It appeared to be a lump of organ meat or muscle of some sort. Mythic fate check. Does anyone reconsider after seeing this flesh? 17 versus 50. Yes. More than one person? 47 versus 50. Yes. I think it's Denzel, who is already dubious, and Ollie, who didn't really want to do it in the first place. Though I think Noriko would refuse to give it to Ollie, even if he could make it over to the correct position. I'm not so sure that's a good idea, Denzel reconsidered when he saw the hunk of meat.
What is it? I can't see!
Ollie flailed about, now near the ceiling of the chamber at the top of the crucifix. Noriko looked disappointed, but she continued to smile.
There is no pressure to continue if you do not desire. You will learn of the Minotaur's goodness eventually, and find your way back here.
She shut the refrigerated box and turned with the 2 slivers that she had cut.
Now, are you two ready to partake? Speak your names, so the Minotaur and I will know you as you become one with us.
Ada struggled to strap herself to one of the kneeling pads, and Therese moved to help her with the task. Once she was confined, Therese did the same for herself on an adjacent pad. I am called Ada. The android spoke up first and opened her mouth. Noriko nodded and placed the sliver within. Ada closed her eyes reverently and then began to chew. My name is Therese. Noriko nodded to her as well and placed the other sliver in her mouth. Therese made a face but chewed anyway.
What's happening down there?
Ollie has now managed to right himself, but he was near the door leading to another chamber.
Shut up, Ollie,
Denzel barked. Well? He quietly asked the android and the woman. Characters who eat the sacrament remove 1d10 bends and gain an equal amount of stress. First we'll roll for Ada. 1d10. She got a 1. 1 bends removed and 1 stress gained. Her bends are now at 12 and her stress is now at 4. Now we'll roll for Therese. 3 bends removed and 3 stress gained. Her bends are 6 and her stress is now 6. Mythic fate check. Do the women experience anything mystical? Very likely. I got a 3 versus a 75. Extreme yes. I'll roll in the descriptor meaning tables. I got majestically and lovely. As the two ate the sacrament, their minds were opened to the vastness of the universe. It felt as if their consciousness was streaming millions of light years through space, seeing the unfathomable, experiencing things their minds could not begin to understand. It was the best high that Therese had ever experienced. Ada could not compute what was happening. They reached out unconsciously to one another and clasped each other's hands. Denzel looked on worriedly. He had a really bad feeling about all this mysticism.
It's so beautiful,
Therese murmured, barely audible. End of scene. There was a lot of exposition and storytelling in this episode, but I had a good time fleshing out some of the characters. Ollie isn't a good guy, so it's okay for you to hate him, as if you needed my permission anyway. I would like to thank Cat P for voicing Noriko on this episode. She did a great job. Cat's details can be found in the description below. If you want to help support the show, consider leaving a like and a comment, as that really helps the algorithm. Consider sharing the link on your favorite social media. That's going to be it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Next episode, we will continue with our story and find out what happens next with the characters. I hope you join me for that, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.